Hey, what's up guys, aarava here, and welcome back to a brand new video here today, and welcome to another F1 2020 game ideas video. 3 weeks ago, we did the first of these videos where we took your comments of what ideas you guys were saying in the comments below, and then I think a further 3 weeks before, or 2 weeks before that, I did my own personal list of 8 things I wanted to see, and so this is further ideas that you guys have put in the comments below of those previous episodes and videos, the kind of the highest thumbs up, you know, some of these even got up to like 500 likes basically, so some of them very popular by you guys, the viewers, so let's go through them. 6 more things that we all want to see in F1 2020 career mode. And starting off with number 1 was the most popular one from the comment section of the previous video. I think like over 800 likes on this comment, which is actually, it was an idea that I've never actually even thought of. It seems so actually obvious really, is different race engineers for different teams. When you move teams, all you get is the same stupid little twat called Jeff every single team. And obviously Jeff is, you know, he's cool, he's funny at times. Some things he says is idiotic at best. The best way to describe it is idiotic. And some things obviously is quite good info, but you get the same person, you get Jeff every single team. It'd be really cool to have a different voice actor for each team basically. I know it's a lot of work, and obviously Codemasters on as big, let's say, as EA, that, you know, do so many different commentaries for so many different kind of modes of FIFA, you know, for pro clubs, career, ultimate team, you know, different, you know, leagues essentially, different continents. They have different commentators doing that, but that's because they're such a big company. They can probably afford to get these voice actors in and doing lines for, I don't know, endless hours basically. So there might be a constraint on that, but it would be such a cool idea to have different voice engineers for each team. It has that instant difference. You know, you have the car, yeah, each car feels different, but then when you're in a race situation and you're asking for information or you're being told info for quali and practice and the race, it'd be cool in the spur of the moment just to hear a different voice, you know? It's a different team. They have that in real life. Drivers have to get used to their new engineers. I don't think there'll be really the same learning curve of getting used to your engineer in-game, because in real life there's obviously a relationship and a rapport and chemistry to kind of build up, whereas this is more of a, you know, click A for a response, click B, for, you know, to ask something basically. But it would still be kind of nice to have that kind of sense of immersion if you have to get used to your whole team. So not just the car, not just the different downforce and whatever, and the look of the car as well aesthetically, also the audible kind of difference of engineer to engineer. And it's actually, like I said, such a simple idea. I never thought of it actually ever. I don't think I've ever said that in any of these game ideas we've done over the years, but this one, yeah, over 800 likes, it's actually a no-brainer. It's actually a great idea just to make things feel different team to team. Number 2 is going to be along the same lines of engineers, is going to be having the engineer give you motivation through the race, or better information about the fights up ahead potentially, like we see in real life. You know, sometimes obviously to the detriment of drivers. We've seen many times drivers tell engineers to shut up, you know, whilst they're racing and whilst they're driving, and that's fair enough, but sometimes the engineers do like to kind of give their drivers motivation, a la kind of, let's say, Daniel Ricciardo potentially. You know, he's always quite punchy and motivating himself in the cockpit saying, let's get it, girl. But I mean, if his engineer says something as well, it always kind of, you know, he bounces off it essentially. And the same thing with, let's say, Ferrari, you know, Leclerc and Vettel, you know, when there's a bit of tension maybe, they'd say just head down, keep your head down, keep going. I think it'd be cool, you know, if things happen to you on track, let's say you get in a crash, your engineer can actually say physically, you know, the actual words like, you know, just head down, mate, it's a long race, just keep on going, to give you that sense again of immersion and realism in the race, especially if you do like a 100% race or 50% races in career mode, like myself for career mode for the videos. You know, it's a long haul race, you know, sometimes, you know, a race like Russia, 27 laps around Sochi, it's a bit of a drag sometimes if it's a one stop, and it can be quite a daunting, kind of boring kind of task sometimes if you pit and basically it's a long second stint ahead of you at Russia or Singapore or, you know, wherever really. And if your engineer just gives you that encouragement of keep going, you know, tells you the gap of, you know, the car ahead of you is only 5 seconds ahead, he's maybe got an issue or he's going to be on worn tyres, or, you know, just trying to motivate you in any way to keep concentrating, to keep driving forward like they do in real life. So just kind of a more improved engineer really. We've had the kind of a very similar engineer for now about, I would say, since 2015 really, 4 years. They have improved it from 2015 to 16, but then from 16 to 17 didn't really change that much, and it very much has been the same thing from 17 to 19 now. So I think it's time for the engineer to get a bit of a refresh. You know, it's been sitting there, it's been okay, now it's getting a little bit stale. I think we need a refresh and some improvements in that kind of area of the game to just kind of perk it up basically. Number 3 is going to be when you get punches, actually have the tyre be able to come off the carcass temperature, maybe have the carcass kind of flail about and damage the floor or suspension like we see in real life with Charles Leclerc in the Monaco GP. And having that kind of situation, if you've got a puncher, you have to kind of drive a little bit slowly maybe on purpose to make sure the tyre doesn't flail about or come off its rim or kind of, you know, start vibrating. We see that with Alonso when he had the puncher at Azerbaijan. I think it was in 2018 if I remember correctly. I think it was 2018 or yeah, 2018 when he was basically on like 3 wheels or 2 wheels because I think 2 of them dented, and basically having to rock the car back. It'd be cool to have that situation where you have to manage that essentially, and if you do a good job you can actually get the car back in one nick and actually continue continue your race, and if you don't, it's game over. The guy, your engineer says, park up the car, mate, your car's totaled, the floor's completely damaged, let's retire the car, there's no point continuing on. Having that choice, we talked before about ideas of having that choice of do you want to retire for a turbo failure or stay out and have a maybe more damaged engine. Be cool to have that choice again with Punches. Number 4, now this is quite an oldie but a goodie kind of game idea that we've been saying for a while, is just the full podium sequences. Having the full ceremony, especially now, you have a kind of half and half of, you have the interview pen kind of just before the podium ceremony. So I know they can't really maybe get Martin Brundle in because they haven't had him in for all these years, and we talked about maybe getting his son in to do some commentary work because he sounds very much like Martin Brundle. We found out at the F1 Esports event, number 1. But I don't know, just even having like Crofty or Anthony Davidson or one of the licensed guys they can get or hire to do an animation of in the pen. You have we already have the same animation now since 2016, I think it was, or even 2015. I think it actually has been the same animation since 2015 of the driver gets out the car, does the kind of double arm in the air, swivels around, and then jumps down and then fist pumps and goes to the camera and it fades and then it goes to the podium sequence. It'd be cool to have a different animation first and foremost, just to spice it up basically, but also having that kind of maybe the pen and then you have an interview, not with Claire, maybe just, it could be with Claire, that could be a good compromise of in the pen you have the interview kind of in the moment, what you're thinking straight after the race, and then it has the animation of you guys going up then to be weighed, and you go up to the room, and then you kind of see the little back room. Maybe you can even have some little access buttons to say something to your fellow podium drivers maybe, and that could work into, I don't know, driver morale, or if it's your teammate up there, you could work it into kind of teammate morale. I'm just thinking off the cuff now, going crazy with ideas, but there's so many ways you can actually integrate it into affecting other parts of the game, because F1, it's about the cars, about the racing, but there's also a massive human element to this sport, and the sport, I feel personally for me, is always best when you really remember it is, there are humans driving these cars. It is a very human, emotional driven sport at times, and these guys, they're running on such high adrenaline after the race, and things happen. We've seen obviously scuffs between Verstappen and Ocon and whatnot. It's just such a missed opportunity to not do stuff like that, where it affects morale and reputation of you in the paddock compared to other drivers, because we all know certain drivers don't like certain drivers or actually hate certain drivers, and others get along, and you kind of lose that. We're not having any of these kind of interactions maybe in the game at all. You just have some kind of on-track battles, but it doesn't really play too much into it. And then simply put as well, part of the comment, one of you guys who put it down, was just having the kind of anthems, just having the actual, country. I don't know, there must be a licensing issue maybe, potentially, of having the anthems, because I'm sure it's like the happy birthday song. Sometimes some restaurants aren't actually allowed to sing the happy birthday song anymore, or anything like that, because of licensing issues of the actual person who owns the song. So maybe it's the same thing with the national anthem. I'm not too sure. I'm not the person to answer that, but potentially that's why. So we don't have it. We have the actual fanfare that F1 do use, but obviously you guys are still kind of asking for the full kind of effect of how the podium is in real life, in the game, basically. But yeah, that and on top of what I just mentioned, I think would just make the whole end of the race even more special. Than it does feel a little bit special right now, but it kind of the novelty wears out, if you know what I mean, after maybe about a season or two. So it'd be cool to have a grander fanfare, as it were, at the end of the race for that entire sequence. Number 5 is going to be a multi-year contract system. Obviously, in real life, we have drivers like Sebastian Vettel, Lewis Hamilton signing multi-year contracts. Hamilton's got a contract till 2021 or 2022, whenever it is. Vettel till 2020 for 5 years now. Ferrari, that's worth $50 million at the first year, and then a little bit less afterwards. Hamilton on a $40 million deal, multi-year deal. George Russell signs a multi-year deal with Williams to be in F1 for at least 2 years or long term. So as a rookie, that's a great deal for him. Carlos Sainz was chuffed to sign a multi-year deal with McLaren to finally have a good stable job, basically, in F1, compared to the 1 year contracts he was getting at Toro Rosso and then Renault when he was loaned over there. It'd be cool to have that in the game. Obviously, it might not work as well because you have this whole thing of every 4 races you have the contract and renegotiation, so it might not work well with the system Codemasters have right now with the F1 game of how you do the contracts in the game. I do like the way it works right now in terms of that ebb and flow, but it kind of would be cool to maybe have this compromise of you can sign a multi-year contract and you could get a better contract, but it means you have to stay in the team then for those 2 years, and if you kind of get out of that team, maybe you get punished by your reputation. Like, let's say you sign a 2-year contract with Ferrari, you want to then leave the team a year early at the end of the first season. If you do that, you breach your contract, you break out of it, and so your reputation plummets with Ferrari, but in general with every other team also, apart from the team you're joining maybe, every other team, the reputation goes down a little bit, because essentially you're kind of showing yourself to be a little bit unloyal and maybe not trustworthy of staying around for a long time and, basically, being behind the team you're driving for, apart from the team obviously you're cutting ties with to join, basically. I think that would be a very cool system to work into, and it kind of give you that playfulness of actually what drivers do in real life, you know, a la Ricciardo has to make a decision. What does he do? Does he play any kind of, you know, plays around and courts Red Bull, courts Renault at the same time? And the same thing, how many times do we hear rumours of, you know, I don't know, Vettel or Leclerc or, you know, Hamilton back in the day when they were, you know, maybe in silly season of their own, you know, courting certain teams. I'm pretty sure we had a lot of talk of Hamilton talking to Christian Horner at some points in the end of his McLaren days. So it'd be kind of cool to talk about that and have that little system of like, okay, I'm going to vie for a multi-year, just a one deal, even a 3-year crazy contract. That's absolutely bonkers, but it means if you break out of it, bad news for you, and if you stay with it, you know, you get rewarded with great, you know, contract perks. And finally, number 6 is going to be pit lane starts. We had this at the Russian Grand Prix. Alexander Albon started from the pit lane, had a beautiful little comeback from the pit lane to P5 it was in the Red Bull. We've seen obviously one of the greatest pit lane drives was Sebastian Vettel in 2012, pit lane to podium in the Red Bull car, and we don't have opportunity to do that. I think it'd be really great and simple actually to just give us the option to do a pit lane start. If you're anywhere on the grid, but mostly you would use it if you're back of the grid. You can say, okay, I want to take my car out of Parc Fermé. You can therefore change your entire setup because you're out of Parc Fermé, but now you have to start the pit lane, so on the pit lane exit, and it's just like a race start. You wait until the last car's past the pit lane line, then you can rev up and actually release the clutch and then go down the pit exit and start your race. And you have to catch up, obviously, to even get to some cars before you can start overtaking, basically, but you might have had a better setup. You know, I know for sure I've compromised my setup at times in career mode to get a better qualifier maybe, and it's hurt me in the race. Let's say I have a situation where I've done that in quali, then I found out, oh god, I have to actually take a penalty now because I've only realised my engine's worn now, or you pre-planned it, and so you can do a good qualifying, take your car out of Parc Fermé then, and change all the wings, go lower wings, run lower downforce for a quick car in a straight line for the overtakes in the race, which might not worked in qualifying for the actual pure lap time per se, or even more so if you made a mistake in Q2 and Q3 and crashed out of the session, then you know you're going to be, you know, retired to P10 minimum, or maximum rather, or P15 maximum if you crash in Q2, then you can say, you know what, let's flip the coin, let's take the car out of Parc Fermé, start from the pit lane, go for it, because I don't think with the setup we had and the pace we had, we're going to do much from P15 if we're in the middle of the pack. We may as well start right at the back, but have a much better car in a straight line to try and make some overtakes. I think, you know, they do it all the time in F1 sometimes when you have to take tactical penalties, and like I mentioned, that drive from Vettel from 2012, so many years ago now, kind of makes me feel a little bit old now, but it was such a great drive. But it was a great drive because ultimately they set up the car for the track to, you know, to make some overtakes. That Red Bull car in 2012 was notoriously slower in a straight line. The Renault engines of the V8s were a little bit slower, and the Red Bull always ran their car with higher drag than other teams and more downforce, but they took some downforce off for Abu Dhabi in that race, geared it up for, you know, the race essentially, and did a great drive. I think you should be able to do that in the game basically, and it doesn't seem like a difficult thing to implement, I would say, like I mentioned. So that's been 6 more things that you guys want to see in F1 2020. Some really good ideas. Like I said, that first one, didn't even think about it, but it's such a small thing, but something that could change really. And that last one, pit lane start, yeah, the more and more I think about it, a really good idea. So yeah, keep them coming, guys, in the comments below, and thumbs up others that you agree with and think are good, because, you know, the most ones will obviously get me the most attention, and when I go through the comment section, they'll be the ones that appear right at the top, so I can easily kind of pick them out. So keep them coming, guys. But if you did enjoy this video, agree with some of those ideas, then be sure to hit that like button. If you're on your round here, to subscribe for weekly Formula 1 content. I've been Aarava. Hope you enjoyed today. I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.